Hello and welcome to It's Not So Lonely at the Top podcast. This is a podcast for business leaders and business owners just like you. We're going to be sharing top tips on how to develop yourself personally and professionally. I'm going to be sharing updated podcasts on a regular basis, so please do make sure you subscribe, and I really hope you enjoy today's podcast. Today's episode, I want to speak about accepting what is, redefining success for leaders. What if the key to being a great leader isn't about controlling everything, but actually accepting what is? I remember back in 2020 when the world locked down due to COVID, and I just lost control of my new startup business. It was absolutely terrifying, and there was absolutely nothing I could do about it. I was told that I couldn't open the offices, I couldn't deliver training, I couldn't go on site to my clients, and I couldn't support them. Literally, income was just cut off at the knees. The business growth that I'd been working non-stop 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, had literally disintegrated and was disintegrating in front of my eyes. It was an absolute tragedy. Leading up to COVID, I'd tried to control everything that went on in the business, as well as the things that went on at home. But nonetheless, what I realised was this thing was happening and there was nothing I could do. It just was happening, and there was, all opportunity, all decision-making ability was actually just taken away. And I really, really struggled. I really, really struggled with the loss of control, of not being able to do anything. And it was just really, really difficult. Now, the thing is there is some learnings in there for us as leaders about accepting what is and what is the reality. So, for example, when I tried to push against COVID, I was essentially just wasting my energy. I was just creating more tension than was necessary. And I'm not saying that the right thing to do is to give up either, but it's to recognize when we're pushing against a closed door. Ultimately, if we fight to control everything, there's a real lack of wisdom there. And actually, sometimes what's important to do, and actually in the interview, I was speaking to Joanna just now as I record this in an interview, and we were talking about the ability to pause and just take stock of what's going on and find that there needs to be a level of acceptance of what's going on to then find the appropriate response. Because the issue is if we're pushing against a closed door, our response is to push harder. If we aren't willing to accept that if I wasn't willing to accept that COVID was happening and I went and broke the rules and broke the law, ultimately I end up in a worse place. The response isn't right. So I think what's really important as a reflection for leaders is about sometimes we need to accept what is and make sure that we respond to that acceptance rather than trying to push against a closed door or to create tension when it's unnecessary. Sometimes our response is better to diffuse the tension about what we can't accept. There's lots of examples that I thought about when I was creating the idea for this podcast around accepting what is. COVID was one of them. The economy's another. As I record this, we're heading into Q3 of 2025, and we're going to have another budget, economy and politics. I used to talk about PESTLE when it comes to leadership and business planning and strategy. So PESTLE is around political, economical, social. What are the things that are going to come up that we have no control over? And Brexit's one of them that many of our clients have had to deal with recently. They're all things that actually we have to accept. If the economy's poor, we have to accept that the economy's poor. There's nothing we can do to change it. If from a political perspective, we get rules imposed on us, for example, HR and employment law rules are looking to be changed in the next year or so around day one rights, for example, and those kinds of challenges. We can fight against that as business owners, as leaders, entrepreneurs, We can fight against it, but ultimately we're creating tension, we're creating ourselves stress. And sometimes we need to know when we have to just accept, because the benefit of accepting is that it increases resilience. So by enabling us to accept the things that are going on around us, we don't need to waste our energy. We don't need to fight anymore against the events that are happening. And that will naturally increase our resilience. It means that we're more ready to deal with the things that we can change and the things that we can affect. So it's really, really important that the things that happen to us, we filter around them to go, well, can I do anything to change? Can I affect change here? And if I can't, I just need to block it out and stop worrying about it. Again, like I say, this really increases resilience and it helps reduce the ability to burn out. Because one of the things that I speak to leaders regularly about in my coaching sessions is burnout is a real issue when we're wasting so much energy and we only have a finite resource of energy. We don't have boundless energy to be able to go and fight things that aren't worthwhile.
Hi, my name's Pete, and I want to thank you for tuning into today's podcast. I'm a coach, speaker, and author. And if you want to take your personal development that bit further, did you know that I offer a mastermind program as well as one-to-one coaching? If you're interested, please do reach out on peterushmer.com.
And one of the things that I wanted to think about today was around what I call externally and internally referenced goals. So an externally referenced goal was something that I always thought was what success looked like, and it requires external validation. So it's what we want others to see or measure or our reward for the things we do. So for example, externally referenced goals is around winning industry awards. I was really proud a couple of years ago to have won Young Entrepreneur of the Year, for example. But for me to set that as a goal to try and achieve, I'd never actually set it as a goal. But if I wanted that, then that is what's classed as an externally referenced goal. It's about how I'm perceived to those around me. Ofsted, for example, I'm a governor at a school and we recently went through the Ofsted inspection. That Ofsted rating is external validation. It's not actually, it's external from us. And whilst we can work towards that and try and affect it and influence it, it's actually external. It's something that we don't get to give to ourselves. Someone else has to give it to us. Many of our customers want to boast about their fleet size, how many vehicles they have. They look at other operators and wonder, well, how did they get to a fleet that size, for example? As well as other material things like our car, our house, our clothes. All of those things are externally referenced goals. They're about getting validation from something away from us. And there's lots of upsides to having externally referenced goals. They drive performance. They help keep us competitive. So I'm not saying we shouldn't have any, but I also think that we need to be careful about how we set them. The downside for externally referenced goals is it creates comparison and it can raise stress, which was what I was talking about before. And essentially, if we're looking to seek approval from other people, fundamentally, we're going to struggle to achieve fulfillment ourselves. Because ultimately, fulfillment comes from something inside of us, not something that's external to us. So I think it's quite an interesting thing for us to think about when I'm talking about acceptance and thinking about what accepting what is and redefining success for leaders. I think that it's really important that we focus on traditional standards, which is often externally referenced goals. But the flip side of externally referenced goals are internally referenced. Okay, so these are anchored in our personal values, our purpose, and our internal standards. It's not about anything to do with anyone else, but it's what is inside of us. And those things that we can affect and we can influence and we can internally reference are things like wanting to build a safer environment for our people and for our clients, because that's what's important to us. Increasing stability, increasing confidence. The upside is that it helps create meaning and motivation and alignment behind what we do. Increasing stability for our team is something that we can do ourselves. It's about having increased safety and security and stability. The downside, though, is it can be harder to measure. And, it can be hard to really understand how we're doing against it. And it can also clash with those external pressures that we have. Ultimately, as business owners, for example, we sign our articles of association, and ultimately we say our business exists to provide profit. So those external pressures around providing profit, that's an externally referenced goal rather than an internally referenced goal, our profitability, for example. So one of the activities that I want you to think about off the back of this podcast is to list your goals. List the things that are really important to you on a personal level and on a business level. But what are the things that are most important to you? Come up with like 5 to 10 things that are really important to you that you're trying to achieve through your work. What I'd like you to do is filter them as you go down them, put an I next to the internally referenced goals and an E next to the externally referenced goals, and see if they're balanced. I think it's a really interesting process to go through. It's one that I go through on a regular basis to work out whether I'm externally or internally referenced. I'm not saying either is better than the other. I think it's important that we have a balanced approach. And I think what I want you to do is when you look at those list of goals is, are they balanced? Because there are lots of upsides to externally referenced goals. They drive performance and competition. They focus us on profitability and the finances, and that enables us to reinvest. So I'm not totally against that. I think it's important we do it. But what I'm saying is we shouldn't wholly focus on stuff that is external to us. We shouldn't focus totally on what others see, measure, and reward us by. The downside, like I say, increases stress, and it gives us that old thing of comparisonitis. Whereas the upside of the internally referenced goals is around meaning and motivation. We find alignment in those things, and that's what helps keep us grounded as leaders. Yes, they're harder to measure, and yes, sometimes they can actually clash with our external pressures, but I think it's really important to make sure that we're balanced in our intrinsic, internal referenced goals and our externally referenced goals. So please do take some time to list your goals out, list what you're aiming for, list what you think success looks like, and just measure, are they externally referenced? Put an E next to the ones that are external and I next to the ones that are internally referenced. And next time, think about accepting what is, rather than fighting and pushing against the closed door. This is all about redefining what success looks like for you as a leader. Thank you very much. I hope you've enjoyed today's podcast.
Thank you for joining us on today's It's Not So Lonely at the Top podcast. We really hope you've enjoyed today's podcast. I'm absolutely delighted that you took the time to listen, and I really hope that you'll subscribe to ensure that you receive future episodes too. If you want to find out any more, please do search It's Not So Lonely at the Top podcast, and you'll find it on your favourite podcast app. Thank you.